Welcome or welcome back to Entertaining with Holland Tunnel, the show where we're going from wealthy zip code to wealthy zip code, eating the rich all the way. This culinary tour's next stop is New York, or as I like to think of it, we're Chicago. I spent many years living in New York, and I love New York, and New York loves me. That's why they named one of their tunnels after me. Originally, they were thinking about calling it the Holland Tunnel, but that was crazy, so they went with Holland Tunnel. That's why on all of my socials, I'm at the Holland Tunnel, so there's no confusion. I am the original. It is named after me. I appreciate that. What's lovely about New York is that while crowded, there's room for everyone. Whether you're crying on the Astor Place subway stairs or getting your rocks off in the brambles, there's a place for you. If you love waiting in lines, New York is for you. There's a lot to love. There's culture, there's great shopping, there's okay food. People talk about New York like it's this great food town, and obviously there's tons of great restaurants. But one of the biggest challenges I had when I moved to New York was maintaining my Midwestern diet. I'd go and I'd order meals and there was all this green shit on my plate. It wasn't like a garnish, it was like part of the thing. I remember it started changing me. I was shopping one day and I walked out of the store with the largest bag of spinach I've ever seen in my life. And that bag of spinach proceeded to rot in my fridge. I didn't know what to do with it. I grew up with different vegetables like corn, potatoes, mac and cheese, like Midwestern vegetables. Honestly, I just wanted cheese curds. I found them eventually, but for the longest time, when I was talking about like wanting cheese curds, folks would just say, oh, just get mozzarella sticks. And that's not the same thing. Okay, they're adjacent, but it's not really the thing. There's a ton to love about New York, but being in that relationship with New York can be kind of toxic. The amount of shit you put up with to be there, I'm not convinced it's worth it. PSA to my New York audience. You can leave if you want to. When it comes to New York, there are so many wealthy zip codes to choose from. Billionaiires Row is the perfect metaphor for New York. It's all of these super tall, very skinny towers. They're crazy expensive, and they're, yes, overlooking Central Park, but they sway in the wind, and so people who live there report feeling seasick in their homes. So that's worth crazy money, right? But that's what New York is. It's expensive, and there are things about it that are amazing, like a view of Central Park. And then there are things that are terrible and to non-New Yorkers seem absolutely nuts to deal with. But you deal with them because it's New York. You find a studio that's a full 42 square feet in a prime location for $3,000 a month, if you're lucky, and you're okay with having rats as roommates because it's New York. Living in New York fucks up your brain. When you think of New York, there's a few iconic foods that immediately come to mind, whether it's pizza or knish or cheesecake or any of those wonderful New York staples. There's many foods to be thought of. So we're making what else? Baked Alaska. And no, I'm not talking about Alaska in the year 2050. And I'm not talking about Alaska 5000, who's been hot as fuck in Drag the Musical. I'm talking about a retro dessert that graced the fine dining menus all over the country for decades. It was huge. 1950s, going out to a fancy meal, you're gonna find a Baked Alaska. Created in New York, super impractical, but we're doing our own little twist on it. We're doing a strawberry cheesecake take on the Baked Alaska because I was torn between cheesecake and Baked Alaska. And I don't know, not to be all bisexual about it, but why not both? It's that multi-temperature goodness that you love about your Chipotle burrito, but it's dessert. It was invented at Delmonico's. There are other origin stories about where it came from, but fuck them. Baked Alaska was originally created in 1867 when the United States bought the territory of Alaska from Russia. It, of course, as we all remember, didn't become a state until '59. But we bought the land, and when Delmonico's came out with the dish initially, they called it a Florida Alaska because of the hot and the cold, and it showed the range of the types of places we have in America. It's great that we're thinking about this, especially in light of what our president has said about purchasing Greenland. I wonder what that dish will be like. I have some ideas. They mostly involve suet. I don't know anything about Greenland. I'm neither a geologist nor a painter. Now I know what you're thinking. Baked Alaska, isn't that like the hardest thing to cook in The Sims? Yes, it is. And it may be hard, but we can do hard things. Baked Alaska is a challenging dish. It involves making your own ice cream. It involves baking a very thin cake. Then of course making a meringue. Then making sure that you don't miss a spot with the meringue because you're putting the whole thing into a 500-degree oven and you don't want it to melt. A lot can go wrong, but we're here for it. I love Baked Alaska because it reminds me of myself. It's hot on the outside, cold on the inside, and when you cut it open, it's a mess.
First things first, we're gonna make our strawberry cheesecake ice cream. First, we're gonna need half a cup of whole milk. Perfect. And we're going to need 1 cup of heavy cream. Great. Last, we're going to need a cup of sugar. And finally, some salt. The best way to make good tasting food is to salt it. We're gonna put it on the stove and we're gonna bring it to a simmer. We're just mixing it up. While that's heating, we're going to separate some egg yolks. Tradwives raise chickens, dragwives lay eggs.
Ah! Ah! Oh! Ah! Ah! Oh! Ah! Oh! And that's all, folks. My babies. I'm so proud.
6 local fresh homemade eggs, separated, and here are the yolks. We're just gonna whisk those up. And of course, if you didn't learn last time, make sure you save the egg whites. You're gonna need 4 of them for the meringue, and the other 2 you can put on your face. Hot tip, an egg white applied strategically to the dress can be very profitable if worn with the right attitude. And so now that our sugar and salt have dissolved in the milk and cream, we remove it from the heat. And what we have to do is temper these egg yolks. We're not trying to make scrambled eggs. This is not a breakfast Alaska. This is a dessert baked Alaska. To temper the eggs, what you want to do is be whisking, and you're just going to do a small stream of about 1/3 to 1/2 of the milk very, very slowly into the yolks. And that's going to keep them from scrambling, and you'll be able to make a nice custard. Now what we're going to do is pour that back into the pan. We're going to put it over a medium-low heat and bring the temperature to a sensible 170. And we're stirring, and it's thickening. It's a waiting game, and we're patient. We can do hard things. If you don't have a thermometer, first of all, kill yourself. But the visual cue we're looking for is that it's able to coat the back of the spoon. You can use either like a meat thermometer or an instant read thermometer or a candy thermometer. Any kind of thermometer will do. There's even a rectal option. You want to keep a close eye on it. Sure, we cracked some eggs, but we're not making an omelet. The Baked Alaska is actually very similar to a French dessert, the translation of the name which means surprise omelet. I guess the surprise is that it's ice cream. I don't know what the surprise is. I don't care about the French. In that bowl, we'll put our remaining ingredients. We have a 1/4 cup of sour cream and a block of cream cheese. We're just gonna keep that same bowl going. It's almost there. That's what she said. Here we are at 170, so we're gonna take that off the heat. And you'll see that it coats a spoon. Now you could just chill this and stop here and have eggnog, but that's not what we're doing today. We're going to take our beautifully tempered, heated up thin custard, and even though we tempered the eggs beautifully, we are still going to strain it because that's the right way to go about it. And we're gonna strain it right into the bowl there with our softened cream cheese and our sour cream. Beautiful. No lumps detected. We are going to just give it a little help mixing it up. If you haven't really softened your cream cheese, you can always use a beater for this, stand mixer, a whisk, a spoon, your face. It might be a little hot for that, but you know. Remember, girls, we want eggs on our dresses, not in our hair. And so we've started that along. The last thing we need to add to our ice cream is the strawberries. So we have half a pound of strawberries and we have a tablespoon and a half of sugar, and we're gonna throw them in a food processor, and then we have ice cream base. We're just gonna pulse that a few times, get those strawberries and sugar nice and mixed up, and we're gonna then mix that into our custard. Check out those. Don't those look good? And they're gonna be good. We're just gonna mix those right into our custard. And you can choose whether or not you feel like spilling some on your table surface. That's just a personal decision. It's just style points. Won't really impact the dish. Once all those ingredients are combined, you can pop this in the fridge and you can chill it for at least 4 hours, but as long as you want. You just want it to be cold.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by these things. I felted them, I named them. DM me if you want them. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Abby Lee Miller. She says fun things like, your mom's an idiot. We also have Anna Kournikova. She plays tennis. She has hair. They both have eyelashes. That's pretty cool. Let me know if you want these. I'm making them. The only thing I need is a celebrity and a vegetable and a pun, and we're good to go. Now we're gonna make our graham cracker cake. We love a graham cracker. They were originally designed to make people less horny. So that's cool. So first we take our dry ingredients and combine them. In here we have 1 cup of ground up graham crackers. We have half a cup of all-purpose flour, teaspoon each of cinnamon, kosher salt, and baking powder. We're also going to need 2 fresh local eggs. These are the remaining 2 from the 8 I laid earlier. And then half a cup of sugar and a stick of butter. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna give these dry ingredients a little mix just to combine them, and we're gonna keep those aside. We're gonna cream the butter and the sugar together. We have the paddle attachment on our stand mixer, and that's gonna go for 2 or 3 minutes. We're also gonna preheat our oven to 350 degrees F. We're also going to need an 8x8 cake pan with a square of parchment paper at the bottom. You may need to scrape down the sides, that's okay. Make sure that it gets all nice and creamed. Now that that's looking nice and lovely, we're gonna add our eggs 1 at a time along with our vanilla extract. We just wanna make sure that we give each egg time to incorporate. 30 seconds, a minute, use your eyes. You're a smart lady, you got this. You got this. We're going to add our dry ingredients in 2 batches. So we're gonna add half of the dry ingredients, mix it up, add the sour cream and the second half of the dry ingredients. We don't want gluten development. This is a cake. We are using all-purpose flour. So we're really just stirring it until it combines. And that's looking nice and wet. We're gonna scrape down the sides and we're gonna add our sour cream. 1/4 of a cup. You can be a little generous if you want. That's moisture, that's fat, that's good stuff. And we're gonna give that a mix and get that to combine as well. And that is nice and beautifully combined. We're gonna raise it, we're gonna scrape the paddle. We might give it a last little stir with our spatula here. Then we're gonna pour it into our cake pan and pop it in the oven. Oh yes, that's looking nice and good. It really is a surprisingly light batter. It's very buttery. Hey, it's the cake version of a graham cracker crust. It's awesome. Now we're just gonna plop it on our parchment paper. This is a sticky dough. It's almost like a cookie dough. And we're just gonna spread it out to get it nice and flat. Typically with a baked Alaska, you want to use an egg leavened cake. It's really the egg and the air bubbles that insulate the outside from the inside. That's why this dish works. But you can really, I mean, recipes call for pound cake, any kind of cake will work. It's the meringue that really does the number on it, but you can create that extra insulation with your cake layer as well. But since this is a New York cheesecake baked Alaska, we had to go with a graham cracker crust. All right, so that's now in there. That's beautifully spread. Give it a little shake, make it nice and even. And we're just gonna pop it there in that oven. This will take 20, maybe 25 minutes to bake. The thing you wanna keep in mind is this is going in the oven again, so you need it to be structurally sound enough to be able to cut it into the circle and add it to the Alaska and assemble stuff on top of it. But if you're on the fence between like very slightly over or very slightly under, go with the very slightly under. You're gonna do it till a toothpick comes out clean. You want the toothpick to come out clean. You never want a surprise dirty toothpick. You know what I'm talking about. So now it's been 20 minutes, and so we're gonna check and see if our cake is ready to go. Yeah, that came out dry, so we're gonna pull it. Doesn't that look lovely? Look at that. Look how good that looks. Perfect. We're just gonna plop that right there. And actually, that should be on a cooling rack. Ta-da! We're now gonna let that cake cool. We've got our ice cream chilling. We just have to wait now for things to get room temperature in the case of this, and as cold as possible for the case of the ice cream. And then we're gonna go churn our ice cream and shape our thing, and it's gonna be beautiful.
All right, it's been 4 hours. The thing has cooled down and the container has changed. Isn't that neat? And we're just gonna put this into our ice cream maker. You do want the ice cream maker running before you pour in the liquid so that it doesn't get stuck. We're just gonna let this thing run for about 20-25 minutes until it's frozen. We're gonna get a lovely soft serve.
Okay, now that the ice cream is almost ready, we're going to take a bowl, line it with plastic wrap, and we're going to end up pouring, or scooping rather, the ice cream into this, and that's going to cause the shape. This is a 6-inch bowl, so we're going to take our cake, which is now cooled, and we're going to cut it into a 6-inch round, and that ultimately is going to go on top of that, and that's how we're going to have the cake and ice cream part of our Alaska. That is looking perfect. All right, so now that our ice cream is completed, we turned off the mixer. It's nice and hot, but the ice cream is nice and cold. We just have a nice little block of ice cream here. So we've got our ice cream. It's nice and frozen. And what we're gonna do is we are just simply going to take it out of that and put it into our nice little bowl, because that is nice and solid. Yes, love. Let me just scoop that right into our bowl, which is acting as our mold. We're getting all this good ice cream into this mold, right? And we're just making sure it's getting nice and pressed in there. We don't want air bubbles, but if we have some, honestly, it's okay. Meringue hides all sins. In there. That is some good ice cream, let me tell ya. And we can just plop our cake right on top of that. And that'll be great. Boom. It fits beautifully, and we're gonna pop that in the freezer. So with our cake in a circle, molded, ready to go, with our ice cream molded, chilling in the freezer, it's time to make our meringue. Today's we're gonna make an Italian meringue. It's gonna be lemony and delicious. It's got both the juice and zest of a lemon. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna crank up the oven to 500 degrees, because once we have this meringue, I think we're just kind of gonna go for it. We are gonna start by getting our sugar up to temperature. We're gonna put a cup of sugar, that's 200 grams. And we're gonna add a half a cup of water. And we're gonna get that heating up. So with the sugar and the water, we're trying to heat that up to the hardball stage, 220 degrees. We're playing hardball. There are gonna be a few visual cues that you can look out for. You bring it up to a nice like simmer boil situation. As the water evaporates, it creates steam, but eventually the water is gone. So you're gonna use that as a visual indicator that you're getting towards the temperature. You can always, again, measure the temperature, but if you're without a thermometer, wait for the steam to slow down, and then the sugar, it will continue to be boiling and liquid. And if it just starts to change color ever so slightly, that's a sign that you're ready to go. All right, so we wanna get this zest of the lemon, because we're using the juice in with the egg whites, but we're actually gonna drop the zest in the sugar right before we stream it in to the egg whites. Oh boy, my arm hasn't been this tired since the last time I hung out with your dad. Okay, so we've got our lemon zest ready to go. We're gonna add our 4 reserved egg whites, and we're gonna add that to the stand mixer. We're gonna use the whisk attachment. This is also when we're going to add our ½ teaspoon of cream of tartar, which is neither cream nor tartar. It's a great acidic stabilizer. It's a shit soup. Boom. A lot of recipes for Italian meringue will call for cream of tartar or lemon. We're getting the extra stabilization from the cream of tartar, and we really want the flavor from the lemon. That's why we're using the rind as well. See, we're still getting a lot of steam. Good. And while that's happening, I'm gonna start whisking up the eggs, probably like 3 minutes or so. We're getting them to soft peaks. We'll bring them to hard peaks after we've added the sugar. So we're only at 215 degrees. This isn't really the right tool for the job, but come on, lasers. Who doesn't love lasers? So why are we playing hardball? That's gonna cook the whites. This is actually already a cooked meringue as soon as you're done blending it, and then we're cooking it again when we put it in the oven. But that makes it a very stable, good to use for frosting cakes or anything like that, and it holds up really, really well. Okay. According to this, we just hit 220 degrees F. Notice that it's steaming still a bit, but it's steaming a whole lot less than it had been. Turn the heat off. And we're gonna let it cool slightly while the eggs continue to do their thing. We are gonna add the lemon zest to our very, very hot sugar so that flavor can start to infuse. Okay, that smells really good. I mean, who doesn't love lemon and sugar, right? Now's a good time to get some of our other things ready. Made a little circle out of parchment paper. We're gonna plot that down on the little cookie sheet. And that's where we're ultimately gonna place our Alaska. We're gonna ice it right on the thing. Okay, that feels like a soft peak. It creates a little bit of shape, but it does flop right back down. So now that we have our soft peaks while whisking, we're gonna stream this hot sugar in. On the width, we're looking for something between like a noodle, like a spaghetti, and certainly no bigger than a pencil. So it's worth taking your time with this because you don't wanna cook the eggs, you don't wanna mess everything up. All right, so that's whipping up, and we're gonna get that going until we're at stiff peaks. Oh yeah, that's getting nice and stiff. We love that. Don't we love a stiff peak? Look at that. Oh my goodness. You see that? That's how you know that's a good stiff peak. It's just boop. Right there. You can actually keep Italian meringue on the counter for a couple of days, so it's great for icing a cake or whatever, and it holds its shape pretty well. We are gonna let it cool down just a little bit to just have super hot sugar in it. And then we're gonna ice our baked Alaska. It's funny that the frosting is hot and the inside is cold, like frosting, icing, these are cold words, but it's the hot part. But yeah, isn't that just beautiful? Well, we've done it. We have made our ice cream, we've baked our cake, we've whipped up a meringue. It's time to cover that up, and we're gonna bake the thing. Get ready to say hi to a baked Alaska. So now this is nice and frozen. The ice cream is nice and solid and molded, and we put our cake on top. Wanted to get that nice and cold too, because it's already baked beautifully. Would ideally like it to not bake much more. So we do need this plastic to release, and the way to do that is either to run some water over it or place it in some water. So we're gonna do that. There we go. And then we just peel that nice little plastic off. Now that we've gotten that off, it's nice and round and beautiful, and we are gonna cover it in our lovely meringue. And with this, we just wanna make sure we get a nice coating. This meringue doesn't conduct heat very well, and that's what allows us to put a block of ice cream in such a hot oven. And just making sure any little bits of pink that we can see through, that we're getting that nice and covered up. You don't want anything, and you're not trying to get it perfectly smooth. It's those little crevices and stuff that get all nice and brown and lovely. So you can see that's nice and covered up. We've got no visible spots of ice cream and those kind of those little mountains and peaks and stuff on the thing are going to make it look really great. Oh, and we have a guest. We have multiple guests that are very excited about what we're doing right now. Hello, Algernon. Hello, Miss Cheryl. Very good. So now this is going into our 500-degree oven. And it's in, and it's gonna do its thing. All right, now that's in the oven, we're gonna babysit it. It's gonna be 3 to 5 minutes. We just wanna make sure we're checking it periodically. It's been about 2 minutes. So it's still getting nice and brown. Got another minute or 2 left. Oh, and that's looking oh so nice and toasty and marshmallowy. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be rich. And don't worry, we'll be going back to protein in future episodes, but this recipe had 8 eggs. I laid them myself, so there's protein. Oh, and isn't that absolutely gorgeous? We've got this, and it's a nice, beautiful slice baked Alaska for me. All right, and we have our beautiful baked Alaska, and we're gonna give it a taste. Toppled over there, but that's okay. That's really great. It is baked Alaska, so it's hot, it's cold, it's very soft and gooey from the meringue, but also it's got a little bit of like a crunch to it from the brown crispy bits. The graham cracker crust is great, and the ice cream tastes like strawberry cheesecake. Pretty incredible. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Entertaining with Holland Tunnel. I've been Holland Tunnel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and tell your friends. Enjoy. Mmm.